Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and felt like that you weren't alone? Or walked into a home that was maybe for sale and felt like there was a spirit there? Or maybe you just felt like something was following you, there were eyes on you. Or maybe you watched one of those ghost hunter shows and you're like, wow, is this real? Did this really happen? Well, I actually have a story. I had CJ Faison, a ghost hunter, come join me at my high school, and we did a paranormal investigation, and there were things that I just couldn't explain. And you heard at Michael's wedding, I also had an experience with a psychic that I can't explain what happened. Well, our guests tonight investigate all of that. In fact, Kenny Biddle, he's an investigator of paranormal claims, and he's the chief investigator for the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, and he's a fellow at their organization. And on the other side, we're going to talk to him. Sit back, grab yourself a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you're into. You're watching America Emboldened with Greg Bolden and Chris Michaels, here on the America Out Loud News Network. Let's get emboldened.
America Emboldened.
Great, I feel emboldened.
You don't know the founding fathers. You don't know what they did. You don't know what they sacrificed. We have lost touch with the principles in the Constitution. Nobody's read the Declaration of Independence. You are voting for socialism, and you got what you voted for.
All right, welcome, bold Americans, together another episode of America Emboldened. To all those joining online, you can leave comments for us live as the show's going. I see a bunch of people already blowing up the chat. We'll get to you guys throughout the show. I'm sure you're excited for Kenny here. Chris is coming up to the stage. Chris is my co-host every single Thursday on the network and here on all socials. Chris, how you doing this evening?
Pretty good, but I'll say this much. Over the past day or so, it's been very confusing. I can't get words out. I try to do a podcast. I just say erroneous things. I couldn't say megalomaniac for the life of me. I mean, if someone held a gun to my head, that'd be it. It'd be over. I couldn't say it today.
Well, you
so
said
I don't know
it
what's
just
going
fine
on.
now. I mean, maybe the spirits are with you. Maybe they're muting your tongue.
Maybe.
You know,
I've got a spirit attached to me.
It's seldom that I look forward to a show as much as I looked forward to this one. I was telling Kenny that before we went live, because you and we get into like talking about energy, talking about paranormal. We've had John Warner IV talk about UFOs and secret societies, or ancient societies, I guess I should say. And I'm the skeptic, and you're the one that's always like, well, Greg, and you've kind of brought me over to your side sometime. But then I all of a sudden hear Kenny, and I'm going, wait a minute. There is a Committee for Skeptical Inquiry? And I watch his YouTube channel, and I'm going, wait a minute, that flashlight trick got me. You know, and I'm learning what the tricks are because I started watching his channel. And so I was pretty fascinated by this. I want to show everybody just a quick clip of just one of Kenny's videos that he's talking about kind of like things to do. And this is an easy one. Like I would have debunked this one pretty simply, but I'm going to pull this up on to the page.
For the record,
yes,
I've always been very critical of the whole orb thing. Taking pictures of and finding orbs. I've been very critical of that.
It's dust.
You know, I'm way out there, but I'm
a TV film major. I could have told you what that is. All right, so here's a quick video from Kenny before we get started.
A bright, hovering orb-like object that Robert believes is otherworldly.
Well, I think Robert is wrong. And I think Robert knows he's wrong because I think this was made by Robert with a flashlight and a piece of glass. Let me see if I can recreate this.
look at that.
Pepper's Ghost. I love it. Absolutely. So, you know, I'm seeing these and I'm like, we got to get them on because people are needing to have truth and needing to have good information. So without further ado, let's bring them up to the stage. Kenny Biddle, welcome to America Emboldened.
Hey there, how you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to get to know your channel. I'll give some background. My students actually found you and introduced you to me. And you did an interview with my students in the high school classroom earlier this week. And I said, we got to get you on the show to my America Out Loud News Network audience here as well, so they can get to know you. So I'm glad that we could do this.
Yeah, me too. The kids were great. I mean, they had some really good questions, and it was a really good conversation. So I'm glad that was able to be set up. That was a lot of fun.
Phenomenal. All right. So, Kenny, we have some things in common, the three of us. We all grew up in Catholic households.
Oh,
Yeah. And I believe that we're all probably also maybe kind of grown from maybe where we were growing up from Catholic households. I'm not sure exactly where you are in your journey, but I know I've kind of drifted a bit, a traveling Catholic, a recovering Catholic to a degree. And I know Michael's as well.
Yeah, I stray very far from the flock. That's okay.
So
yeah, me too. I'm way out there. I left that far behind years ago. So yeah, I'm right there with you guys.
All right, we're kindred spirits then tonight. That's good. All right, so Kenny, tell us a little bit about how did you get started in what you do as far as skeptical inquiry and trying to debunk the paranormal or prove or disprove?
Wow. So I actually started out as a ghost hunter. Pretty much what you see on TV on these not reality shows. I was one of them, and oh my, there I am, real big. Wasn't expecting that. But yeah, I was a ghost hunter. I believed a lot of things just because of my upbringing, the background in religion and Catholicism. So I believed pretty much everything, and I have the standard operating growing up of watching In Search of, Unsolved Mysteries, stuff like that. And I mean, you guys probably know at that time, you had to be in front of the TV. There was no rewatching it. You were lucky if you caught a rerun. So you had to be there. And I was fully invested. I grew up believing ghosts and monsters and UFOs and aliens and miracles and all this stuff was real. And then the more I got into the ghost hunting thing, I realized like everyone was getting activity. Everyone was getting photos or audio recordings. This thing that was supposed to be so rare and like so mysterious was common. It became common, and that didn't sit well with me. And I started looking at other avenues, more knowledge, trying to figure out things. And I started getting into photography, and that gave me some knowledge. I was learning about camera anomalies and mistakes that people were making. Orbs, big bane of my existence, orbs. We can talk about that later if you want. But it really changed. My whole outlook really changed one night in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where I had an experience, which is not what you think it is. I basically went out there with a group of friends. We were in a section of woods that we were told by the park rangers was like a special spot. They didn't want to patrol there. They were scared of it. It freaked them out. So naturally, I was like, yeah, I want to go. And I went there with a group of friends. And I don't know how long we were there, but sometime later, 3 cars drove down the road and stopped not too far from us. Now, we were in a patch of woods. We were inside the woods in the dark. And across the open field, I see these 3 cars. And people get out. I see flashlights. I see laser pointers. They're laughing. They're yelling. They're, messing around. And I'm getting annoyed because, I'm young and I'm a ghost hunter, so I'm a professional. And I was getting really annoyed, especially when they started walking towards us. And now I'm worried. They're going to walk across this field, find us, and they're going to want to join us. They're going to want to know what we're doing. And I'll tell you, back then, this is the late 90s, early 2000s, ghost hunters were territorial. Like, this was my spot. You're not allowed in my spot. You're not allowed in my bed and breakfast or haunted inn or whatever. That's the way they were. And I was pretty much the same way. But these guys got too close. I lost my temper. I finally marched out of the woods. Now imagine, this is like 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. And from this dark forest comes this big guy out in the woods. I had my photographer's vest on with all of my ghost hunting equipment all dangling off of me. And I'm screaming at them going, shut up, go away, get out of here. This is our spot. They stop dead, turn around, run back to the cars, drive away. Thinking, great, that's awesome. Problem solved. So we were actually in Gettysburg for a paranormal conference. It was a ghost hunting conference at a local hotel. So the next morning we go downstairs, we're in the lobby and we're talking to a bunch of people, and we start hearing rumors about this group that saw this amazing apparition the night before, and asking questions like, oh, where were you? Oh, we were at the wheat field. Great. I was there. I was like, oh, what time? Around like 7 o'clock or so. That's what time I was there. Where did you see it? Oh, it came out of the woods right along the wheat field. And I was like, crap. Like that was me. I'm pretty
sure the ghost.
Yeah, I'm the ghost. And they refused. They didn't accept that at all. I started giving them details about what they were dressed in, what they were carrying. I told them what cars they had, because I was a car mechanic for like a decade. So I told them all this, and they still refused. I said, no, that wasn't you. We saw a ghost. I was like, no, this is what you did, and you ran away, right? And well, that kind of pissed them off. They were like, we didn't run, but we just left. Like, all right, you ran with your tail between your legs. But basically, the confrontation ended when one of the group turned to me and said, stop trying to steal our spotlight. And then walked away. And that's when it really hit me. Like, all right, they're not in it for the truth. They're not actually investigating. They just want the thrill. They're here for the thrill, for the spotlight, to get attention from everyone else. And that actually caused me to look at myself, like my practices. How was I approaching this? And was I doing the same thing? Was I ignoring good information because I thought I wanted to believe? I wanted my beliefs to be true. I wanted to have that excitement. I wanted people to look at me and pay attention to me. And it really bothered me. And that was the turning point. I started looking at more of the skeptical literature about paranormal claims across the board. And that's when I found Skeptical Inquirer magazine. I found the work of Ben Rafford and Joe Nickel, who has been working. I mean, Joe was doing this for about 50 plus years. And then I know Ben Rafford was doing it over 25 years. So these were good people to talk to. And I reached out and I talked to them and I started learning more. And I realized there was so much more to this than what I was doing. And I realized I had that problem where I knew very little, but I thought I knew everything. And then once I started learning a little bit more, I realized how much I didn't know. And that really changed me too. Now, I mean, my motto, you can see it right behind me here. It says never stop learning on the shelf. That's my motto. I live by that. Every day I try to learn something new and expand my horizons, expand my knowledge base, and understand things better. So I don't make the same mistakes. So after doing some presentations at local groups and actually doing more and more, people started inviting me to bigger groups and bigger events. And I caught the attention of the people here at the Center for Inquiry and the CSI. And next thing you know, Joe Nickel, who was my predecessor, he retired and they offered me the job. And I said, hell yeah. Investigate weird stuff all day, every day for a living. Yes, that's for me. So here I am in this office, and that's what I do now. So there you go.
So I was just thinking two things. One, I'm going to move my camera up. Ooh, let's go. Ah! You see my sign above my head, which is not normally on camera. Keep learning new stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, the 100-year. I got a Polaroid one I got to build soon.
I have that. It's up on the shelf. Yeah.
I haven't built it yet, but I will. All right. So one of the things that you were saying, and I had watched your video where you talked about, coming out of the woods in Gettysburg, and it kind of hit me that this is the cognitive bias, so to speak, and the cognitive dissonance that people bring in. I think that's the word I was looking for, dissonance, that people bring in the conversations when we don't want to believe what we see. And in my world, for a long time, I covered a lot of politics stuff because the network thrives on the politics side of things, and there's plenty of hosts there that do that. But as I've done the show, I find I'd rather tell the story about emboldened Americans like yourself that are doing great work to bring science and discussion to things and remove the cognitive dissonance from the conversation and deal with the facts. What are we actually seeing? And one of the things that I think we could agree upon, but I'm curious for if you've seen this when people talk to you about you debunking things, I believe that people like a good story. And the more outlandish the story, the more people like it. And so you get these individuals on social media, they get millions of followers by bait clicking people. It's all clickbait, right? But it's
Right.
outlandish bullshit claims that people believe and they go, yep, absolutely. Which is where we get to things that get outlandish, like QAnon and like crazy, 56753, 8675309. I saw this number on the bathroom wall. The real OGs will get that joke. So how much of what you investigate is more cognitive dissonance than having to show people science?
I think it's a lot of it. I mean, there's a this is a good one. This is a good question. I haven't actually been asked this before, but I think the majority falls into that category, because the people that I engage with are believers. For the most part, they are believers. They believe that there's an afterlife. They believe that ghosts exist and spirits exist and demons exist, and that they can do all of these like crazy superpowers that we see in movies. And they've believed this for years. They've had these beliefs and they've become part of their personality. It's not just a belief, it's part of who they are and how they present themselves. I mean, so many times I've been to social events where someone will say, oh yeah, I'm a paranormal investigator. And like, that's their identity. So it's really part of it. There's also a small chunk that are not, they kind of don't have this belief. They don't know, like something weird happens in the house and they just don't know. And they're looking for someone to say, hey, can you explain this? I have no clue. And it's not like they're a believer or a skeptic or either way, they're just down the middle. Something weird happened and they just want an explanation. So I do get emails and messages like that quite often, where people are just like, it's not that I don't believe or believe. I just know I want to know what the hell I'm dealing with. That's all. Like I hear this noise all the time. Like, can you help me? Yeah, let me take a look. But yeah, I think for the most part, there is when you start coming in, it's not just cognitive dissonance, because that's when you start hitting them with the facts and they start realizing that the facts are contradicting their beliefs, and there's that internal struggle going on there. Sometimes it's because they want to believe anyway, and they've never been challenged. It's like speaking to the choir kind of thing, that kind of scenario where they're used to being in a community where they speak freely and everyone pretty much agrees with them. No one challenges them. No one asks a question that would shock you, like, did you really see that? Are you sure? Like, nobody says, are you sure? Unless you're skeptical. They tell a story. Like, I saw a ghost. It was a shadow figure and it was so close and I felt cold and everything. And I guarantee you the majority of whoever's listening are going, ooh, really? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I had something like that too. Nobody says, are you sure? Like, did that really happen? Could it be something else?
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, it's really interesting. You're right. I think a lot of people, they like the story, right? It tells a good tale to
Right.
people around them, and they like the idea that something crazy could have happened to them, right? So, what are some of the steps you take to start debunking some of these claims? And what are some of the first things that you look for, and then how do you expand upon that to come up with your own, I guess, logical reasoning?
So this is good. This is actually two for me, it's two questions. But first, I want to point out that the flashlight has been turning on and off for most of the show. I want I just want to point that out. If you keep watching this, I set that up for you.
You're getting me. You're getting me.
So it
know.
should.
I know
blink
how
out.
it works because I watched your video.
All right. So basically, debunking is not my intention, and I try to always make that clear. That's not my intention going out. My intention is to investigate a claim and see what is going on, and whatever the conclusion is based on the data, the evidence, is the conclusion I'm going to go with. Watch, it's probably not going to go off now. Oh, there it goes. Whew! I almost blew that trick. So yeah, debunking is, I mean, basically for me, definition of debunking is to take the falseness out of a statement or a claim. And that's usually the result of my investigation. So I just wanted to make that clear, that I don't go in intentionally trying to debunk everything. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So the first steps are, I mean, I think the first step is the obvious one, is to interview the witness to figure out what's going on. And I want to interview them as soon as possible and away from other witnesses.
So wait, before you go on, is it good enough to say that what you're trying to do is create doubt? It doesn't mean you're trying to completely say that they're wrong. It's just being able to create enough doubt where they start questioning things, or at least say, oh, that's all it was.
So yeah, it depends on what's going on, because I honestly don't go in thinking I'm going to prove this wrong.
Right.
This
just reminds me of my LSATs when I took them, trying to get into law school. Like, you don't have to say it's false, but you just have to, add enough flavor to it to at least say, well, I don't know if it's true.
I'm curious. Yeah. And if I do have similar experiences, if I do have information that might help, like right off the bat, especially if you're showing me a photo or a video, I'm pretty good. I have background in that. I have some education in that, so I can look at them and give you a lot of details. So if I can look at it and say, oh, you know what? I do recognize this, and here's some details that I'm picking out, and I'll go through it step by step. And yeah, that's going to create doubt. And I don't want it to sound mean, because I'm not trying to crush someone's dream. No, it's just basically so many people come to me excited. Like, right. We really got something. I think I got something. And I mean, they're the sincere ones. I mean, I have other people that email me, and the first line is like, I have the world's best ghost photo. You need to print this, and you are going to be surprised. Give me my $1 million. Like, email. I literally had emails like that, and I don't respond.
Wait, hold on. The headline here is they're giving out $1 million.
Yeah. That's why we're having them on my show.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I want to throw my hat in the ring.
There is so there used to be the James Randi Educational Foundation. The JREF had their $1 million challenge, and that went on until I believe 2015 is when they ended that. But it was a challenge for anyone that claimed to have some kind of superpowers or paranormal powers, and they could demonstrate that under scientific test conditions. And if you agreed upon a protocol and you went and took the test, you took a preliminary test so they could observe it the first time out, to see if there was anything they weren't controlling for. And then if you passed that, you went on to the main test. And if you passed that, they would hand you a check for $1 million. No one won.
Okay, I was going to ask, did anyone get this money at any point in time?
No, nobody won. And then they ended it in 2015. But my organization, we have a Los Angeles branch, and we offer a $500,000 challenge for the same thing. And I've seen people apply. I've seen people being tested. I've taken part in the testing myself. So I've seen people really believe that they have some kind of superpower, and no one has even come close.
Have you had anybody? Okay, so I have a bunch of questions here, and I know Michael's does too. Have you had anybody that has presented something to you and you can't debunk it? You can't say there's not something supernatural, paranormal about this. Has anyone ever stumped you?
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it happens, because the number one reason why I can't offer an explanation is lack of information. And that's on either my part or their part. You know, if they're telling me a story that happened to them 15, 20 years ago, we're not getting all the information. We're just not. If they're reciting it from memory, we're not getting the information. If they show me a photo they took months ago or a year ago or a decade ago, and they're trying to recite from memory everything that was going on at the exact time that picture was taken, I'm sorry, you're not giving me all the information. There's going to be gaps. But there's also gaps in my information or my knowledge. So I might have to look up a few things. There might be something that happened on site and I can't explain it because there's just a lack of information. For an example, I was at a mansion. It was called White Hill Mansion in New Jersey. And it was my wife, myself, and then the caretaker. And we're down in the basement. It had a full finished basement with a big bar. It was like sweet. It was a sweet, I mean, it was, we're talking speakeasy kind of bar here. So we're down there. The caretaker's telling us a story, and we hear this loud bang from above us. Really loud bang. Don't know what it is. We go upstairs. Nobody's supposed to be there. We don't find anyone. Can't find any source of this noise. And we're left with, I don't know. And the caretaker was like, well, it might be the ghost. And I'm like, it might not. Like, we didn't find the source. So we can't say either way. You know, it could have been a branch that fell off, you know, a tree because it was surrounded by trees. Could have hit the roof and fell off. And now it's on the side of the house somewhere. I don't know. I just don't know.
So if I showed you a video from a ghost hunt that I was involved in about 2 years ago, of course, I can give you some context. I can answer whatever questions that you want to ask. I was in the room. I was filming for my students, but we brought in a ghost hunter by the name of CJ Faison. A guy does like YouTube videos once a week. He's also a professional, was a NASCAR driver. I think he does something else now, like off-roads.
I'm slightly familiar with him. Yes.
Yeah. He told us up front, he's like, I'm not expecting anything. We're coming to school. And I'm thinking to myself, he's not expecting anything because he's not controlling it, right? It's our cameras. It's my students. But then some crazy stuff started happening. But there's this one thing here. I see somebody in the comments. CJ is I love it.
Yeah, he's pretty well known around the debunking community.
Yep.
So,
yeah. But this is something that I captured, not CJ. I want to make that clear to everybody. Also, for those that are tuning in on Kenny's channel, he is simulcast streaming my show, America Emboldened, on his thing. So if you're confused as to what's going on, that's what it is. But welcome. I'm glad to meet you all too. Thanks for being here. I'm having just as much fun watching Kenny and listening to him as you guys are. And so thanks for letting me into your fandom as well of his channel. I want to show this clip to you and then get your reaction, because this is one of those things I've shown to other people in the film industry, and no one could really explain this to me. So this is our video. I'm going to blow it up so that way you can have the best opportunity to be able to see it. And it's going to come in just a quick second here. Here we go.
You got people. What can we do to help you?
So watch on the right-hand side. I'll put the mouse after the camera cuts to
Make
the
a noise.
Okay, watch right over here. I put little highlights.
You what?
Who's you?
Starting now. Looks like water droplets moving down and then across.
Yes.
I'm going to put it in slow motion.
No. I'm talking about the stuff that just moved by. I pointed to you.
What?
Like water.
Who?
Did you see that?
Is there like water over there?
No, there's no water.
Here it starts on the right, wraps to the left. From an infrared camera, this is a Canon. Sorry about the crazy sound. All right. Yeah, that's just because it got slowed down. I didn't mean anything for that.
That's okay. Yeah.
All right. So I'm familiar with orbs. I'm familiar with dust particles, especially they were popular in like the early iterations of digital cameras. You would see them all the time in film, you know, the flash particles. But the question that I have on this is, as that comes down with the infrared, what are we looking at? Tell me, since my friends couldn't explain this that are in Hollywood, what am I missing?
I think this looks like almost like magnetic disruption. When you get what what? I'm blanking on the word. It could be two things, and I'd really like to look at it closer, but it could be some kind of magnetic interference. I don't know what was going on, what was behind the camera, who had what there. Or I have seen it sometimes where using, depending on the camera, the sensor gets, I don't want to say corrupted. There's an issue with the incoming light because it's amplifying the light. Right. It's trying to take in all the infrared light that it can because it's on. What kind of camera is this?
So that's the Canon XF605. It's a $5,000 camera. And it was brand new. Like, it was basically fresh out of the bag. I just bought it that year.
All right. So I'd have to look into it a little bit more. It looks like distortion on the digital end.
So let me tell you two other things that happened. Like, that's the only time that appears in that video. I had just bought a brand new lighting kit right before, like, they were these little magnetic lights. They were fully charged. And, he's like, hey, if anybody is, spirits are here or some BS, like, turn the lights off. And the lights started shutting down. And so I'm curious, is there a device that CJ and his partner could have been using to interfere with our electronics to make that happen? Because it's not like the flashlight trick. This is, an Aperture professional $300 mini light that was fully charged. And then when I go, it's showing me it's completely drained. And I'm going, wait a minute. This just came off, and it didn't happen to just one. It happened to 3 lights out of about 20.
So with that, I'm not going to be able to give you an answer because I need to know. I need to see the lights itself. I need to see what they are. I need to look into them. And this goes into a little bit of what Chris asked me earlier. Is that one of the steps would be to look at the manufacturer site, look at the specs, look at the components of this, and see. Are there known flaws? Are there known issues with it? What can affect it? What can affect it? Because I need to know. This is not that video, and this scenario is not something I've come across before. Oh, there it is. Cool, $90.
Yeah, these are little 90s, each little tiny one, and I had 20 of them.
And is there any kind of like timer or low power thing?
No.
I'd have to play with it. And just see. I can't give you an answer.
I can go into an effects tab, but that's not what this was. Like, the power literally got cut to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were fresh batteries?
They were fresh, straight charged. And the rest of them perfectly worked fine.
Okay.
And the thing is, after I charged them back up, they've never given me a problem since. And that's why, like, after he left, I was like, did he have a device? Like, what happened?
Is this the first time you used them?
Have I really? Yeah,
Maybe?
sorry. I'm getting like some odd... There we go. I sort of had some odd audio coming through there as I was sharing my screen. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Was that the first time?
No, it's not the first time we used them.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to start speculating without actually knowing. There might be a setting. There might be something there that I'm not aware of. But I'm thinking more and more about the video. Like, that's in my brain now.
Sure.
And I mean, it still could be dust from the ceiling. Where were you at?
We were in our theater in the high school.
Okay.
Yep.
So high ceiling, very high ceiling.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
so
probably like 40, 45 feet.
I'm wondering because I didn't see like an infrared light. I didn't see any indication of an infrared light being used. Did you have one on?
So the infrared setting on the camera is currently being used in that shot. Yes.
All right. But there was no external light.
No, there's no external light. We were in a completely dark space. We turned off all the lights. I think there might have been a few emergency lights that are just for fire hazards.
Right.
But outside of that, there's nothing else that's going on, as this thing comes across.
All right. So normally, I mean, when you deal with night vision settings like this, it's still dependent. Usually what they do is they take the cut filter, the IR cut filter, out from in front of the sensor. That's how you switch it on and off. And that way the digital sensor in the camera is exposed to the full range of infrared that it can see or it can detect. And in this case, usually I see people use like external infrared lights. Like I'll have a mounted light that's infrared instead of a spotlight. And I don't see any indication
No, we
here.
didn't own any of those.
Right.
No.
Okay. So what I'm getting at is when you turned around to look at this much darker spot, the light is behind you now. So
Okay.
and any ambient light was behind you because we could see when in the
Correct, you're
beginning we could see. Okay, good. So if there is dust that is falling from the ceiling, and it's fine particles, we're only seeing glimpses of it because it's what the camera is picking up is only the brightest reflections instead of all of it. So if you had like a normal floodlight, a normal spotlight, we'd probably see a lot more. But I'm thinking, and this is just speculation, because it's you got the hamster on the wheel in my head. I'm seeing the little glitter kind of thing going on because it's very low light. It's trying to amplify. Like that's a really good shot right there.
Right. Yeah. I tried to pause it for you.
Right. I mean that to me is probably a bunch of dust particles falling down, but you're not going to see all of them because you only have very dim ambient light behind you that's going to reflect off of them. If you had an infrared light attachment onto your camera, these would be much brighter. You would probably see a lot more. And that's, again, that is speculation off of just what I see, and I'm trying to think it through here. I would suggest if you do this again, if ever.
I don't know if I will.
I mean, just if ever, I would say get a infrared light attachment for it. At least an infrared light attachment for it, because that'll make everything show up better. Because it's so dark here. That's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
For now, until I get more information.
Yeah. So the only other thing that happened during that time, there was a door on the far end that had a bunch of magnets on it, and midway through, all the magnets fell off the door, and no one was standing over there, and that was kind of bizarre to me because I'm going, I have no idea how. Like, I am the skeptic. Like, out of like, that's why I'm wanting to have this conversation too. Is like, I don't believe that there was really some ghost in the room, but I don't understand how what was happening was happening.
Did you watch them fall off?
I did not watch them fall off. There was a student that was about 10 feet away that heard everything fall. We went over with a flashlight, and they were all on the ground when we discovered them.
Okay. So that I would classify as, and I mean no offense, it would classify as a cool story, bro. But that's about as far as I can go with that because it wasn't witnessed. It wasn't recorded.
Yep.
We don't know what happened.
Yep.
And I just because it has to be part of the disclaimer, the person in charge is known to help things along. Mm-hmm. And so I would be very suspicious of anything that was run by that person. So
it's perfectly. You're not offending me whatsoever. I have no skin in the game.
I try not to be an a-hole all the time. I mean, I am enough that when I can hold back.
I mean, I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm an AV teacher that happened to invite this guy to the school because my students thought, why don't we ask and see if he'll show up? Kind of like when they asked to interview you. Right. It was the same type of concept. And he just like, yeah, I'll come to McCain and we'll record something. You can bring your cameras. So yeah, I have no skin in the game. You're not hurting my feelings whatsoever. And anything, I'm just here to learn. And I can tell from the conversation and the comments, people are learning and already, have an opinion, I think, on the individual that came and visited us.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go into another spot. Michaels, let's go into your wedding.
Oh, why? No. So, to give you a little bit of background, obviously I got married, and one of my very good friends.
I figured that out.
Yeah, right? You're piecing it all together using that the skills of deduction.
Man, he is really good at his job.
Right? How did he figure out that one? What clues did he have, Greg?
Context clues.
Background check.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. That's going to be a sordid past. Yeah. So basically what happened is that I have a very good friend of mine. I am a Reiki master, so I'm not sure if you know what Reiki is.
Oh, I do.
Okay, so I'm certified in that. And the person that basically certified me was there at my wedding. I've known her for probably a decade now. And she let Greg know about some, I guess, some things about his perception that no one else knew except for Greg. And I guess Greg was kind of startled by that. So what exactly did she say, Greg?
Yeah, so she started off, and I thought I was marked. Like I contacted
Yes.
Chris afterwards. I was like, "Did you?"
I was
tell
doing some
this-
of this, you know.
Yeah, did did you
Talk to
tell like
him.
this woman like some things about me beforehand? And she's like, "No, there was no conversation." I believe him too. Like I don't think that he did, but she told me a ton. So I don't want to get into it. We'd be here for 30 minutes, but I'll get to the main points. She told me that my grandfather is always with me. And I was like, okay, I only have one grandfather because my grandparents on my mom's side died when she was young, so I never knew them. I don't even know what they look like. I don't have a memory, whatever. But my grandfather and I, when I'm asleep, he often comes to me in my dreams. And he tells me things. Like I've known that people are going to be pregnant, my brother, my wife, because my grandfather has told me first. And maybe that's intuition being like tied and like I'm reading the world and energy of what people already know. And it comes to me somehow through there and that happens. I don't really know how that works. But that's something that's happened in my life where I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of reading the tea leaves, so to speak, where my grandfather tells me. So when she says my grandfather's with me, I looked at her. I'm like, well, which one? Just to kind of play, roulette on this. And she goes, well, the one that had the garden. And that immediately kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. My grandfather lived in the suburbs, but alongside his home, he had a 1-acre garden in the middle of the suburbs amongst everybody's else home. There were no gardens like this outside of my grandfather's. He died in 1990, so it's not like you could Google search this guy, even if you were marking me and stuff and get information. And she started telling me about like his favorite green beans. And I'm like, that's his favorite thing. He used to always talk about this. And so I'm curious when people say that they are psychic or are able to identify qualities about me that I've never shared on my show or talked about. Obviously, I'm talking about it now, so everybody knows. What am I working with, and where does your skeptical mind go?
So the first thing I'd have to point out is that I'm not privy to the entire conversation. Sure. So I'm only getting what you remember, what you recall from that conversation. So this is a common problem that I've come across over the years where sitters have gone to a psychic or a medium. They've had a reading. They've had, I see your dead family, and these messages and stuff like that. And they don't record it, so we don't know. We get one version of the story. But when we do have examples where the reading was recorded, we find out that the sitter usually forgets most of what happened and how information was transferred back and forth. There's two techniques that I come across quite frequently. One is cold reading, and that is basically when they ask you questions in the form of a statement that you answer and pretty much tell them everything they need to know, and they regurgitate it back to you. And that happens. That's a pretty good skill. When people are good at it, it's a good skill. You can draw a lot of information about a sitter from that with that skill. The other is hot reading. And that's basically when you research the person beforehand, when you know about them. If this person was well aware of Chris, which I assume she was, because you took classes or something from her, so she knew you.
Well, she didn't know anything about Greg.
Okay.
Before
were you guys doing this show at all?
Yeah, we were, but she doesn't know anything about that. I mean, there's always a possibility that she stumbled upon the show, but
so that's the thing here. There's when, like you're saying that there's no way she would know of that, and then Greg, you also mentioned like there's no way you could Google some of this information,
right? And
I have found that has been mostly incorrect over time, with people saying that there's information that they told me that they could never have find out, and 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour of Google and Ancestry, you do find information like this. And we also have a habit with social media. People have a habit of posting things years ago. They forgot stuff, like when somebody died or when they were remembering them, and they share a special story. And then 6-7 years later, they completely have forgotten that they had posted that. And I've seen psychics do this where they go through your social media feed. And I know it's a good tactic because I use it myself. I do that, and I'll sit here and I'll scroll over and over and over until I'm years back when you first joined, like Facebook or.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty creepy.
It is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna argue with that.
In this case, Kenny, like, there's no way she would have been able to. I mean, if some of this just doesn't make sense, though, because there's no way she would have been able to put that type of time and effort to know that I'm even going to this wedding. It was a very quick wedding. She did not seem familiar whatsoever with who I was in Chris's life whatsoever, because when I walked up, she goes, "How do you know Chris?" And I told her, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't even know he was doing this, blah, blah." And she's like, "That's great." And I said, "Well, how do you know him?" And she goes, "Well, we go way back into other things and years." And so I didn't get the impression from her significant other that was standing there too. And even my wife, she was like, "Yeah, like that felt like she might've been a little bit more legitimate than illegitimate."
Maybe, unfortunately, that's part of the job.
Right.
And I have seen it. I have seen a few that are just horrible at that, but for the most part, a lot of them do come off sincere.
All right.
Some of the best ones that you see on TV they come off sincere, but I'm not. Let me say this as a disclaimer: I am not going to convince you of what might have happened, because I don't know, and that's why I started out saying I'm not privy to the conversation. I don't know exactly what was said back and forth, what you said, what she said. I don't have that information, and I'm relying on you to tell me what may or may not be the way it went. And to be honest, we don't know. Unless it was recorded and we can watch it and listen to it, we don't know the specifics. So, I mean, I can give you some ideas, and I'm more than happy to tell you like what I've encountered, but I don't think I'm going to convince you.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I guess
like
my question to you would be, do you believe that there could be a possibility that people truly could have medium characteristics, or that they're more in tune with the world than others, where like I've gotten things in my dreams, messages that have 100% come true, to the point where I can write them down and put them in an envelope and people can open it later and it's accurate. How do I do that? I mean, I don't know how I do it, to be quite honest with you. It's just something I've been able to do in my life. Or do you believe in that, or do you think I'm BSing you right now? Because I know I'm not, but I'm just kind of curious where you stand.
First, I do not think you're being BSing me. I do not think that, because you come off sincere. I think you're genuine here, and I think you really want an answer. Unfortunately, I don't think I can give you that answer. Okay. I personally, no, I do not believe in that. In speaking with the other side or deceased people, I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't have beliefs at all. I think we talked about that. Did we talk about that in the beginning of the show or before the show?
Before the show.
Before the show. So like I left that when I left religion. I do not hold beliefs. I have ideas. And that's my philosophy. Because as far as I'm concerned, having an idea is easier to change with new information. And it's much harder to change a belief when you have new information. So I stick with ideas. And right now my idea is that there is not there's no afterlife. Ghosts don't exist. Psychics don't talk to them. Mediums don't talk to them. Psychics don't predict the future. When you talk about you have dreams that you could write them down and actually make predictions from them. I have two questions for you.
Yes.
One is, please do that. Write it down, date it, sign it, send me a picture.
Yep.
And we'll see if they come true.
Yep.
Because I mean, that's a testable claim. We can actually test that. Yep. And I would love to take part in that. The second one is, how many times have you had dreams where they didn't come true?
I don't have dreams hardly ever. So when this happens, I pay attention. Like when I tell you that this hardly ever happens to me, it hardly ever happens. So when my grandfather shows up in a dream, I pay very close attention. This has probably happened 10 times total in my life. I'm 45 years old. And he started showing up about a year after he passed away, around 1991. So 10 times since 1991. So
I'm not so sure about you don't dream. You probably just don't remember them.
Yeah, I dream, but like not with like
everybody
information.
dreams.
Yeah, not with
Everybody's-
information that's you
yeah.
know
I
focused.
mean, we all slip in and out, and
Right.
we have several different dreams every night. It's just when we
Right.
remember one, it's just the last one that we had.
Yeah, I guess I dream every night very vividly. My point is like my
Okay.
grandfather and my grandmother sitting across from me saying congratulations, and I say
Okay.
what? He goes, it's going to be a girl, 6 pounds 7 ounces. And so I write it down, put it in an envelope. My daughter's born. She's born at 6 pounds 7 ounces.
So that is pretty damn specific. And
Exactly.
that's why I'm saying, hey, write it down
Yep.
next time. Next time you have a
Well,
dream,
I have been. Yeah.
write it down, and I will email you back. I'll
Great.
give you my number. You text me a picture.
Yep.
That morning. And it only counts if it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Has
yeah.
to be a prediction, and we'll track this. I will open a file. You will get your own file in my file cabinet because I want to test this.
Oh, I love it. I'd even bring you onto the show to like talk about this type of stuff and get down that. But we're here now. That's fine. Chris,
Cool.
Yes.
you often talk a lot about the Reiki chakras and all of the esoteric world. What would you like to present to Kenny and let's get esoteric and get his thought process on here.
Oh, you mean? Oh, okay. So, you're talking about my pictures, right? Maybe.
It doesn't have to be the picture. It can be any of
Okay.
your stories. I mean, you've brought a lot up on the show.
All right. So, just to give you an example, so when you're a certified Reiki master, there's a way to do distance Reiki, and so basically you have to coordinate with the other person. You can do breath work. You can do light a candle so that they're focusing on the same object that you are, and all of that. So I have helped two people in various ways. One was my wife. She was was down with COVID, and she claims that, and rightfully so, she was sick. She had a constant fever of about 100 degrees, wouldn't go up, wouldn't go down. So that means that the body is slowly being worn down, because if the fever goes up, that means your body is fighting it, and you get over it. But if it's just this even 100 degrees, then you're just being worn down. So all of a sudden she texts me and say, oh my God, I'm like burning up. I feel like it's 103 degrees and so on. And that was when I was doing the distance Reiki work. And the next day she was fine. She didn't have the fever anymore, and she was able to get over it. Now, I mean, you can point in a couple of different directions. One, I did something positive for somebody. Two, it could be, she felt as though I was doing something, so it was a placebo effect, and her body was doing it on its own. So, I mean, that's some of the stuff that I've done in my past.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not where it's all hearsay, right? You can't go anywhere with it. I mean,
it is. I mean, and I'm going to say some stuff. No offense to you.
No.
I mean,
Go ahead.
But this was not a controlled environment.
No, of course not.
Whatsoever.
Right.
So, I mean, she could have been on the mend by herself.
Exactly.
When you started doing whatever you were doing. So yeah, I mean it's, and I think this is actually a good lead into some of the beliefs that happen. Why some beliefs are reinforced, because this could be just a matter of timing. Maybe she was feeling better, and I don't know all the details.
Right.
I don't have it in front of me. Maybe
like,
she was feeling better.
Right.
You started doing your stuff. The timing coincided.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean causation. It just means it happened at the same time.
Right.
But this is one of the reasons why so many people hold on to their beliefs, because if we have some timing issues, if somebody has a meter, a crappy, does this work? Yeah. K2 meter for watching ghosts, if that happens to light up the same time that somebody hears a knock down the hallway, does that mean both were connected? No. And actually, the best analogy I love to give is, if I'm in the restroom doing my business, I flush the toilet, and at the exact same moment the doorbell rings. Does that mean I caused the doorbell to ring?
Wow.
No, it just
That
two
would be an
things.
impressive trick.
That would be, wouldn't it?
Giving
I
a
mean,
lot of
like,
angels their wings by doing that.
how did I do that? That's cool. Let me do that again.
I mean, it's a poor example,
a
right? It's
special
anecdotal
turd.
evidence. There's plenty of variables. It's all hearsay. There's nothing I can prove about it. I mean, my wife swears by it. I swear by it. But if you're trying to prove anything, it's a poor example. So let me try to go to something else. And this is a photograph that I took because I think this is a little bit more juicier and you're able to sink your teeth into a little bit more.
Juicy.
So I took this photo about 25 years ago. It was in a park close to me. I live on Long Island in New York. And this was a photo that I had no intentions on, being anything special. It was just what I felt as though was a nice photo. I tried to frame it well. And it was in a stream. So that's why I decided to take that photo. And so here's the image. Here's the full photo. And I'll zoom in so that you can see it a little bit better. So obviously you can see there's water here. There's, a buff and there's a bridge in the background, and we'll zoom in so we can scope everything out. So really my whole main objective was, oh, wow, this is a nice spring day picture. It's bordered by 2 trees. We got a nice stream. Look at that. Isn't that just lovely? Right. So I decided to use this as my wallpaper on my computer. And I put that up there probably around, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock. And then all of a sudden, I started to look around this whole thing. And I noticed at the bottom, now I did not mean to take this at all. I noticed this image here at the bottom of that tree. So the image to me kind of looks, and once again, you have to bear in mind, this is a 25-year-old picture. So the pixelation is kind of troubling. But, for me, it appears as though you got eyes, a nose of some sort. You have these, what appear to be dowsing rods. And I'm not saying that's what it is. I just don't know a better description.
Wow. I was going to go with like claws.
Claws, sure. I mean, you got these little skinny arms that are maybe grabbing the thing. I mean, it looks like they come into right degree angles. So for me, I'm going, how on earth, we find right degree angles and all that. Right. So that's the little guy that I found. Now, I've shown this picture to many, many people, and it's funny. It seems as though there's a generational skip. So I'm 40-ish, right? I'm 40. My parents and people in their generation swear to God that this is an owl. There's no convincing them otherwise. This is 100% an owl. No other way around it, right? If I show this to older people, so in other words, my parents' 100%, they say I caught a gnome, a ghost, whatever it is. So it's just very, very interesting that you have that generational skip on the whole thing.
Right.
I'll go back to the main picture. But this little guy is over in here.
Right there. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is. It's just something that was there.
I mean, the lighting for the rods is in line with the lighting and shadows coming across. So from a film perspective of what I've studied, the lighting makes sense on the sticks, so to speak, that look like they're at the bottom of the tree. What I couldn't tell you is that owl-looking,
whatever this is, the little
Dobie-looking dude, elf,
right.
whatever. That I can't tell you because I don't have enough information about how that tree sticks out. But I'm a skeptic on that one, as I told you before. But now, Kenny, I'm getting the tag in the professional. Go for it.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I see the patch, the overexposed patch of grass below it. That's coming up. So I'm gonna just call them dowsing rods just for the sake of
right. Just for
that's what you called them.
Yeah.
So
right.
That blends in pretty well with the patch of grass underneath of it. So I think that's actually before. I think there's a perspective issue here because I think that part is actually closer to the camera than the tree. And then what's on, I mean, the problem is we don't know. Actually, Greg, you hit it on the nose. We don't have enough information about what this looks like here because it's in the shade. It's dark. We do see along the left side, we can see some highlights. Like if we look up right above the head. So if we go to the left edge of the tree, over a little bit. Wait, down. All right, where your cursor is, go a little bit to the left. All right, so right there and then down like that, we can see that there's highlights along the side of the tree there. So there is some light getting in there. So if what is perceived as the eyes, the nose and bridge and the brow are sticking out, if that is part of the trunk that's like a stump that's sticking out a little bit, or it's a knob, then yeah, you're going to have something like that. And we also don't know if that is part of the tree, because I'm seeing all around it, there's branches and leaves and brush that are rising up from the ground that are just as high. I mean, look to the right of the tree. You can see those branches coming out of the ground. They're going up even higher than Dobby here. And I'm totally going to call it Dobby from now on.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's just so cool. So, yeah, I mean, actually, I mean, did you try to lighten this up?
I don't think so. I think this is what it is. I mean,
if you
this is 25 years old. I don't know.
I might be able to lighten that up for you, though.
Sure.
And get a better look. And again, like, and I'm glad I actually said it in the beginning of the show. Like, this is a story literally from 25 years ago.
Exactly.
So who knows what was going on? I'm so glad I said that.
Yeah, right.
Because we came full circle.
So what's also fun? Well, one, I did not mean to take that. Right, I didn't know I was taking that. And I did go back to this area.
Okay.
About a year later, and so this is actually was it 3 trees? Yeah, it's like three trees.
Is it?
1, 2.
I don't know. I mean, I see the split there, but I don't know what it looks like. I mean, that could be coming from
like one tree that's split 3 ways. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's actually like it's 3 trees coming out of one, I guess, root system, and one trunk.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also a good point, because I mean, we can see to the left third, we can see that there is sunlight coming through. Yeah, up there. We see sunlight coming through. So I don't know how far that divide goes. So if that comes down even there and just lets a little bit in, and again, if there's a knob that's sticking out a little bit, then there's your. I mean, it's good. This falls into the category of pareidolia. I mean, this is we're looking at we're looking at something that looks like a face. And you know what? If you look around, you might be able to see other faces, the shapes of faces in this scene, because it's so chaotic.
So I went back here. This tree here is actually the closest tree, if you can imagine that. And then this one is the second, and then you got the third one that's kind of behind it all. Right. So to me, when I see this, like I can understand the light coming through this way. Like this beam of light right here seems to hit this, right? Hit that dowsing rod and then play over here. However, what's odd too is that it also seems like the sun is higher this way more than it is this way, or I should say it this way, higher above directly rather than at an angle. And the reason why I say that is because you have this light playing here, but these trees make this shadow. Do you see that? It's like a band of shadow that goes right there. So that's why I don't necessarily think
no, it can't. No, I don't think so, because that's we're following like right below where your pointer is. That trail of light. If we're following that across, if we're following that to the right, that's changing the angle. That would give us a better angle of the sun that would match what we see on the tree.
Gotcha.
And then if we look across, this is great. I love it. If we look across the creek, go to the little waterfall, all the way to the left there. Yeah.
Here?
Like I'm curious against the water. Well, no, that's a wall. That's a concrete
Yeah, this is a
wall.
wall. This is a
Right.
concrete
So
wall.
look at those shadows there. I'm curious about what's making that
Right.
going
So-
up there.
I have to tell you guys, my favorite comment didn't come through StreamYard on the
What was
stream,
it?
but it's posted to X right now. It says it's a troll charging a toll for that bridge.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thou shall not pass.
That's good.
So
That's good.
so let me tell you what other people have seen, and I don't.
Do you-
They see this. Okay.
You don't have any other angles of
No.
this?
No, I actually went back a year. I went back after I saw this, and then I went back a year later, and I took the same. I tried to take the same kind of picture. So I stood in the stream here, and I had the whole thing angled, and obviously this little guy wasn't there, but what appeared to me in this tree at that time was a bunch of like faces. So I tried to find that picture. I probably lost it because once again, it's 24 years ago, 23 years ago.
Right.
But other people, now it takes me a while to find this one. They say they see a skull by the bridge.
I don't
And
see a
I'm
skull.
assuming it's this.
I don't see it.
I don't see it because maybe that's an eye, maybe that's an eye, maybe that's the teeth, and they kind of formed this face kind of thing. I don't see that, but
Wow.
many people claim that this is a skull in there.
I feel like I'm 9 again, looking
I
up at
know.
the clouds, going,
I
"There's
know.
Dumbo."
And
I'm
then
looking for Waldo.
Yeah.
people gravitate
I
over
found 'em.
here too because their eyes, once again, I think, play tricks on them. They claim that this is like a witch's face with witch's hair coming down, and she's got a little triangle hat. And then they always gravitate.
Cauldron.
Yeah, right. They always gravitate to this little
The hamster with a party hat.
Muppet
Yeah.
dude. So it's like I don't necessarily subscribe to whatever these
Right.
could potentially be. I don't
mean,
know what that
there's
is more than
plenty.
anything.
I mean,
But your eyes play tricks on you too, right?
Oh,
when
yeah.
when you're
I mean,
looking
this
for something, you're going to find something.
We're basically wired to look for faces.
Right.
We look for faces, and in a chaotic scene like this, there's so much going on. There's so much shading, and there's pixelation. Everything's distorted, and we're going to pick out
Exactly.
stuff. I mean, it's easy. I was looking through as you were scrolling around, and I was like, oh, well, that could be two eyes. That could be like a demon face right there.
Yeah.
There's so much there. And that's just the nature of the beast, pardon the pun. But that's just the way it goes. You see a picture like that, someone will pick it out and go, oh, this kind of looks like this. And then once you say it to somebody else, you prime them, and that's what they're going to see.
Right.
So as soon as you put up an image, or you tell someone, does this look like Dobby the elf?
Oh,
And
I never
guarantee
say
everyone-
that. I
Well,
never say that.
no, I'm just,
Right.
I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
Right.
If you were to go to somebody and say, do you see Dobby the elf? I guarantee most of the people that I know that I'm friends would go, oh shit, yeah, that's Dobby.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
Dobby. And that's all they'll ever see.
Right.
Uh,
Like what I would usually do is just hold the picture up to them and I say, see what they can find. See what you can find.
right.
You just look around it.
But isn't that the danger of the world that we're living in right now? I mean, so like, not to tie this to, I definitely want to get the artifacts too, Kenny, because I understand you have collected artifacts that are supposedly
oh my.
haunted with spirits and stuff, and we'll get to that in a second. But isn't this the problem with the world in politics? That people are looking at scenarios and situations and coming to conclusions of what they want to see based upon their own beliefs.
Yeah.
And so, I often tell everybody, like, personally speaking, it doesn't matter which presidential candidate's running for which party, because I think that we're just in a pretty shitty situation between choosing from two geriatric old men. We'll just leave it at that. But the fact that people can look at, election interference, and then I can interview a guy by the name of Ken Block who was hired by Trump's campaign, and he was actually able to say, you know what, there was nothing provable of election interference, to which basically he was fired. He wasn't fired, but basically they said, get out of here. But people are looking for, give me the proof that confirms what I want to see. I'm looking
Right.
at the photo for what I want. And so the work for Center for Inquiry, where you're a fellow and chief investigator, what are some of the areas outside of the paranormal that gets covered by Center for Inquiry? Like, what all could people find there?
Oh wow, you can find stuff on alt med, medical issues, political issues. We also have another magazine called Free Inquiry that deals with secular humanism and religious beliefs and issues with that. We take on like psychology issues, medical issues, science, space, pretty much the gambit of science. It started out with the fringe topics in '76 when they started, and the first issue was called the Zetatech. And when that was out, there was a lot, and I still have these blue binders behind me here on the shelf. That's everything. These are all the issues up till like the 90s, and then I have the rest of the issues over on my shelf. But they dealt with a lot of psychics, mediums, astrology, firewalking, anything that people could make a buck off of that had the metaphysical kind of spin on it. And then eventually they broadened into other sciences, other areas of interest with that. So if you pick up Skeptical Inquirer, you're going to find a lot of different topics, not just, stuff that I do. It's everything: biology, chemistry, astrophysics, whatever. It's in there. So it's a good, well-rounded magazine.
That's good to hear. So sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to ask him about a COVID question, since they get into the medical stuff, if you don't mind. And if this is outside your wheelhouse of what the Center for Inquiry is covered, that's
probably fine. Yeah. I read the articles same as you, but I can't speak as an authority on that.
Yeah, no,
you
I'm
can
not
ask your question.
Yeah,
I could try to answer it, but I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, one of my colleagues that's on the network with me, and he comes onto the show quite regularly, is Dr. Peter McCullough. Dr. McCullough went on to Joe Rogan immediately. They wanted him banned, Joe Rogan that is, after Peter McCullough went on there, because they said, oh, he's spreading medical misinformation. After talking to this doctor over the last 2 years, this guy is the most published physician in the world. Most peer-reviewed. This is factual information. And every time he's been on my show, he cites the peer-reviewed studies. He cites the literature. He doesn't offer opinion and presents it to the point where I can look at the papers and go, oh, I can absolutely understand why you feel this way, what the science is supporting. And I feel it's balanced, but yet those videos get removed from YouTube. Still getting censored if I have him on the show. And so I guess my question is, the Center for Inquiry find that there are topics that even they might have trouble staying published, or they find because it's scientific based that it's kind of approved and it's more successful? I guess that's what I'm looking for. Like, do you guys ever hit a brick wall of censorship sometimes if you don't find that agrees with the official narrative?
So I know when articles are submitted, they go through fact checking, and then checking the references, making sure it's something that is putting out good information and not misinformation. If there is a thought or a problem where something might be misinformation and we have a concern, then yeah, it's not published. But otherwise, the Center for Inquiry controls it. That's our magazine. So what the boss says goes in it. Nice. But it's not like I'm the boss. You just put in whatever I tell you to. It has to go through the fact checkers, and it has to go through fact checkers, references, editors, and also legal, to make sure that we're not putting out, because we brand ourselves as the magazine for science and reason. So if you're going to put out crap, you're not really living up to your your tagline. So you got to make sure it's good. And even, I can't speak for the other issues because that's not my expertise. That's not my background. But I know even for me, when I do investigate like a psychic that claims that they helped solve a missing person case, where I've done several, I have to go through and really, I have to check everything, and people have to check my work, and it has to go through legal because I'm naming names and accusing people of, you're lying. You're actively lying, and you're trying to exploit this to make money off of someone else's misery. So I have to make sure everything is good. And I have a close relationship with legal because I say some. I like to speak my mind, and I just sometimes it comes out without thinking. But so I think that's the best answer I can give you.
That's fine. Yeah, Chris and I have gotten good at saying allegedly.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah,
have that moniker in there.
One of my
Probably.
favorite words. You're allegedly haunted place, or a self-styled psychic, or a self-styled like all.
What is a self-styled psychic? What the hell is that?
You give yourself that title. That's what that means. I mean, like psychics, mediums, ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, they all gave themselves the title. Nobody gave it to them. They gave it to themselves.
Podcaster, somehow I got
it. Yeah, right. Somehow. Somehow
journalist.
I became a broadcaster. So do you folks look into this whole Tartaria thing? Have you ever heard of this?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay. So this is one of my pet peeves. So the whole theory behind all this is that there was a massive, glorious civilization that built all of these buildings all across the planet. Some kind of event occurred in the 1800s, miraculously around the revolution in France and when Napoleon was gallivanting around Europe. And this magnificent race of human beings that built all of these structures, they just went away. Nobody knows what happened to them. The earth was covered in a mud flood, and therefore human beings after this calamity decided to repopulate these glorious buildings. And that's what has really been hidden from us in the 1800s and into the 1900s. Now, here's the fun part too. Tartaria is the name of the race. Tartaria is also on all of these old world maps, basically in Russia by Alaska. So if you look at maps from the 1500s, 1600s, they always say Tartaria, right? The culture of the Tartars is nothing new. In my opinion, they try to really stretch the soup on this one. They like to use photographs, black and white photographs. And there's one that I tore up. They show a picture of Paris, if I'm not mistaken, and there's nobody there, right? It's just buildings, but there's nobody around. I looked at the photo. I found when the photo was taken. It was taken when cameras first came out. So that means it has a 20-minute exposure rate. So please tell me how you're going to get a civilization, a population to stand still for 20 minutes while you're on a hill with the plunger, not moving. So there you go. There's why nobody is there, right? But the real issue here is these people, it's like you said, they want to believe, right?
Right.
So they will look to everything and say, this is part of Tartaria. And they don't give human beings enough credit. A lot of these structures, like this is another one. You should look into this. All of the world's fairs, all of them, from the ones that they did in St. Louis and Chicago.
World's Fair, yeah.
All of them, right? They called them different things. One was, I think, was the Transatlantic Expo or something like that. They're saying that those buildings were there already. And so they needed an excuse to hold an event there, and that's why it looks like the way it was. These buildings are too immaculate.
Never mind, there's pictures of construction.
Too glorious, right? Meanwhile, you can find, all you have to do is a Google search, like you said. You could find the architects. You could find the architects that built it and the architects that bid on building it and what they intended to do with their blueprints. One that really, another one I tore up. They were saying that the Eiffel Tower is part of Tartaria, and it was always there. And they built Paris around the Eiffel Tower. Meanwhile, you can go find photographs of them laying the foundation of the Eiffel Tower, and nobody wanted to believe it.
I just thought it was an antenna so we can talk to our parents that dropped us off on the earth.
So if you guys, please, maybe take a cursory glance at Tartaria and what you could find on there. I mean, it's all over TikTok and X and Instagram.
Really?
I'm viral.
I don't do X. I do a lot of TikTok. But I've never come across this.
Oh,
I'm
you've
looking
got
at I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now of it, and I'm like, wow. Okay.
It drives me nuts. As an I was an amateur art historian until I figured out how much it was negatively impacting my GPA, and then I dropped art history. But
Wow.
to say that these buildings could not have been built in the 1800s, I mean, look at the paintings from the time period. It shows cities full of people. If there was
Right.
some calamity, no paintings would have survived that era.
That's yeah. I mean, this is
It's great. It's great. You got to look into it.
The mud
I mean-
flood hypothesis. Interesting.
it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, I mean, like the older cameras, yeah, absolutely, it would take a long time depending on lighting,
Right.
to get an actual shot. And honestly, the oldest actual photo that I know of is from like 1827.
Right.
And that's the oldest, and it's of a building. I forget the details. I remember just seeing it. It's not a very good photo, but that's the oldest one. So to say like one that that they have a photo from like 1800 or before that, I mean, that's my first red flag that goes up. And like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. But you're right. Like, I could do that today. I could do a long exposure with a neutral density filter on it, and take a long exposure on a cloudy day and get a city street, a main street that looks empty. I mean, I could still do that, but that's funny that we just went poof. That's what happened. We just like the rapture.
Something happened in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and everyone disappeared. And that's also right. This is also explaining why you saw so many child orphanages and where Charles Dickens gets his inspiration from.
Wait. So my question is, if everyone disappeared, how do we know they disappeared?
Only the adults.
Oh,
Somehow the
only
children were spared.
Oh,
In a giant mud flood that covered up buildings and
The mud
all
so
the
like
world.
the mud selectively chose who
Yeah.
it was going to cover.
Yes.
So
Oh man.
I have so many questions.
So
Oh,
do I.
Like
Hey,
I said, I mean, you could go on. We could do a whole show
So,
on this.
I
You could go
mean,
on
yeah.
and on.
Kenny, we had a guest on, and I really like this guy. So again, in the spirit of what you were saying earlier too, I'm not trying to be disparaging because I think he's great in what he does with space weather and stuff. But one of the things that he talks about to his audience, I think, is a little bit more fringy. Although there's a number of people like Jimmy Corsetti that are having this conversation as well. Have you heard that the Earth flips on a 90-degree angle about once every 12,000 years?
90. I heard the poles like instantaneously reverse.
Correct. Yep. And then the mantle and the crust rotate at about a 90-degree angle.
90 degree. Like yeah.
Yeah.
We all rotate 90-degree angle.
And
Well, it's funny that. So that doesn't just come from nowhere.
there's science. There's science behind it.
There's science behind it, but there's also mythology behind it.
Yep.
A lot of ancient cultures, like the Nordic cultures, they all tell about before there was a moon. That's how they describe it. Before there was a moon, Earth was a certain direction, and the poles in this case were essentially in the North Pole is in the Siberia, in Nordic legend, right? So instead of it being the North Pole, it's the North Pole, and the sun didn't rise from the west or from the east to the west. It was actually what we would consider south to north. That's them, and you can read a lot of other ancient cultures that do that. So I'm not saying it's valid. I'm just saying that this has been kicked around for quite a few millennia.
But we definitely hang out in different circles.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, and I like that somebody commented, and that it was a great idea. I think we should ask our TikTok time travelers to go back.
There are TikTok time
and
travelers.
Oh,
You didn't know about that? Yeah.
No.
You didn't know about that? I know
No.
something.
I
you
just
don't
thought it
know.
was fancy alliteration. I didn't know it was real.
There's a couple that I've watched that like they're in front of like fast food restaurants and stuff, and they're like, "Look, I'm back in the '70s," and because they have the advertisements and the signage and stuff. And I mean, when you're some of the stuff I found, like I've been able to go on just as a hobby, like something to distract me, and I actually find like the restaurant that he was at, which is still looks like it from the 70s, but it's still there today. But yeah, there's a bunch of time travelers on TikTok that claim that they jump back and forth, past, present, future, and all that. So, but I'll ask them. So can you go back and check this Tataria and check the 90-degree tilt?
So I want to tie all my shows from this week together, Michaels, as we kind of wind down our time with Kenny. Kenny, what you do, you said at the beginning, requires a lot of information that, as time goes on, it can be difficult to collect. I actually think as time gets closer, it's going to make your job even more difficult in the future as well, because I've been covering a lot like Sora AI, this new ability to text to video in photorealistic journalism. I have Parrot AI that I've been using on my phone, where I can take my own voice and make it say anything, as well as other people's if I just sample about 30 seconds of their voice. At some point in time, how difficult is it going to be to debunk things in an increasing usage of AI that's getting trickier and trickier to spot?
It's going to be, in some aspects, yes, it's going to be much more difficult, if not impossible. I mean, I've seen it. I've had a few people that follow my work have been really, really nice and wrote songs for me, because I do a live show every Friday night, and they wrote songs for my intro and my break and even my outro video.
Your music's awesome, by the way. I just wanted to let people know that from my audience.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I love it. And the first time I heard them, I was like, oh, these are great. Like, this sounds professional. How'd they do this? Like, did this cost them money? I felt bad because it was so good. And then I read the description. Like, they wrote the words, but it's all AI generated. Wow. It's like, wow, that's so scary. So scary. And this has been something that's been on my mind lately. And we've actually talked about it here quite often. Because like we had a speaker come in a couple months back, and he was talking about some of the dangers of this. And one of the things that really struck me, like, I knew AI was out there. I've used it. It wrote me a fantastic and flattering bio that I send out to everyone. So I was like, wow, this makes me look really good, like much better than I am. But one of the things that the speaker mentioned, his name is Tim Redmond. He was talking about some celebrities that were shown to be in some kind of pornographic movies, which they never were in. But the AI was generating these images and video clips of these up and coming celebrities in those kind of movies. And I mean, that knowing the power of basement computer geeks, and that's the best I can say. I mean, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. All right. So like watching Star Wars, watching the new series that are put out. And I'm going to use this example. When the Mandalorian had the one episode where Luke Skywalker showed up at the end, like, it looked pretty good, but then someone at home on their home computer reworked it and actually made it look better than Lucasfilm, than Disney made it look.
Oh, wow.
And
that's not a high bar to cross. Let's be honest.
The what?
That's not a high bar to cross. Let's be honest. I mean, Jar Jar Binks.
No.
He's talking about Luke and Kylo Ren at the end, where the planet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong crowd. I'm going to leave this conversation. I don't know what I'm
talking
about.
Get with.
I don't
Kenny.
Watch Star Wars.
I do. So
my God,
my car is literally named Darth Vader. I have Darth Vader on my charge port. We're in good company. Very good, Kenny. I'm leaving. I have the Rebel logo instead of the Tesla logo. It has the Rebel logo on it. It's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, just the thought of that someone was at home and was a fan and said, hey, you know what? Didn't look like Mark Hamill when he was, Luke Skywalker in the original movies. I can do that better. Boom, did it better. And now we have people at home that are that write songs, put it into a generator, and boom, you have a professional voice singing these. And I can't imagine what's going to come if they're making photorealistic. how's the hands? That's what I got to ask. I know AI has a problem with hands.
So the hands are phenomenal. Would you like me to show you a video of this? All right. Give me 1 second just to pull up the video I had yesterday for Michael's. It's
but it is
AI.
scary. It really is scary. That's a small part of what I do. I mean, a lot of it is digging. I have to dig through archives, old newspapers, records, and trace family trees or trace people. I'm basically, and I think we mentioned this at the early part, or maybe even before we start the show, like I'm pretty much a professional stalker that uses his powers for good. Because I do have to track people and see where they came from, what they were doing, what locations they were in, depending on the investigation I'm doing. So sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with a photo or a video. All right.
All right, you ready to dig in?
Yeah, let me see this.
It's going to blow your mind. This video is only about 2 months old, so it's still relatively pretty new technology. But you can see here, beautiful, snowy Tokyo City is bustling. Camera moves through the bustling city streets. So none of this is real. Like, this is all AI. Here it is.
Okay.
I'm going to pause there because it's about to change. You can see here they have obviously like middens on, but here it looks pretty natural. All the feet look pretty natural. The leg is actually coming back. This guy's leg is coming down here. I mean, this is probably the best AI model I've seen. Even the face as she's coming in with this mask,
Right.
these individuals, this is absolutely beautiful, and this scares the shit out of me.
So with this, for me, this is something I would block out my schedule for the day, and I would go frame by frame. I would download this, put it into my editing software, and literally go frame by frame, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to see if I can find anything that stands out, anything that doesn't work right, anything that maybe gets cut out or cut off or whatever. So yeah, it would take me a while.
Yeah, I'll go slow speed just to let you process.
This
that
looks
for just a
amazing.
quick moment. I mean, it's just so absolutely phenomenal. Even the snowflakes coming down that are so subtle. But I'll tell you what really bothered me was this right here, because I actually looked up this spot in Big Sur. Oh God, I'm getting an advertisement here. It's StreamYard. There, StreamYard's like, you're using the software. We're gonna get a spot in here. All right, so right here. So I looked at Big Sur's Garay Point Beach. It looks nothing like this, but yet it creates something that's believable, right? And so watch this. This is phenomenal. I think I still have it in slow motion too. So let me turn that back. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely in slow motion. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
So I'm keeping it in slow motion so you can kind of see frame by frame. If you told me this is a brand new DJI commercial for their new drones, I'd believe it. I can see maybe down here this wave doesn't look completely natural.
Yeah.
Michael's, you're muted.
I thought I hit unmute. All
There you
right,
go.
so it's faulty in perspective. Like it tries to create a three-dimensional moving perspective. If you look in the top left, to me that looks fake.
I disagree. You're looking at it as a paradoxical shift as that drone moves forward. I mean, that's something you can use.
I kind of agree.
Okay.
On the top, it looks
Back
flat.
here.
This
Yeah.
looks like Google, not Google Earth, but yeah, Google Earth kind of
Up in that section.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
I
has
can see that.
flatness.
But if I'm looking at all of this and the way the paradoxical effect is coming off this Bowden edge on this side, it's beautiful. I mean, it's rendering the 3D the way I would want to continue to show the beach behind. This is a little artifact right on the side here is a little odd, but that was like the only thing that's really sticking out to me. And I'm like, that's a little odd.
See, this is why, I mean, part of my job is when I have to review video like this. This is what I do, frame by frame. Like, let's go back. Let's look at it. Let's go to that corner and enhance it a little bit and see, like, are there any distortions? Does anything block out? Does anything just overlay itself or just disappear? I mean, sometimes you get stuff where it just disappears. It doesn't render correctly. I mean, it's beautiful. If you just showed that and didn't tell anyone, and we saw it for like a few seconds during a regular show, then yeah, it would appear just believable.
Yeah,
This is scary.
It's mind blowing. That's what I'm thinking. Like, as you're getting into the paranormal, and now people can change voices, they can embed things hidden within multi tracks. I'm worried that we're getting to the spot of our lives where you're not gonna be able to trust your eyes or ears.
One of my rules is if you do send me video or a photo, like I want the raw footage. I want it. I want to look at everything. I want to look at it raw. Don't crop it. So many times I get images that are cropped, and they're obviously cropped because somebody's cropping out something they don't want me to see, and that I'm looking at going, no, I want the original. I want the original file. I want the metadata that comes with the file because I want to see all that. And then even with the video clips, I usually insist on, I want 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after the point where you want me to look at. I want to see all of it. And if they can't provide it, then I mean, I can look at it real quick, but I'm not going to give you an honest opinion. Well, I'm going to give you an honest opinion, but it's not going to be anywhere near what you want because you're not giving me what I want. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of stuff like this, it's easy. I mean, like I said, I do TikTok all the time. I'm recreating people's videos. So I see like poltergeist videos and ghost videos and stuff, and I see them and we recreate them here. We have a blast. My coworkers love it because I get them involved, but we'll sort of see a video and within a half hour, we figured it out and then recreated it. And we did it sometimes better than the original one. And then we post it. We post everything. Like, here's the original. Here's our recreation. And then here's the behind the scenes. Here's the second camera showing you how we did it all. So
what was interesting about AI this was really during COVID and the last election, is that they were using AI to censor people, and they were reading text and also, I would assume, listening to video and transcribing it. They found out that AI has real difficulty parsing sarcasm. So it doesn't understand tongue in cheek. It doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't understand that kind of language. And so a lot of people got banned just for being, salty. It's nothing more. So it's funny that AI doesn't have a sense of humor.
It's still learning. Give it time.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I still, because we use we use an AI generator here to do readings of some of the articles, because we put out like audio versions of some of the articles. And my outreach coordinator behind the wall here, Eric, he uses an AI generator for that. And he still has to go in and edit sometimes because it doesn't get like pauses, like our pauses that we do for maybe dramatic effect, or just because it's the end of a kind of a thought, but the sentence continues. It doesn't understand that. So he has to go in and actually add pauses or hyphens or something like that to help it along the way. And he also still has to misspell words on purpose so that it can pronounce it correctly.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we have an award here. It's called the Ballas Award, and it could not pronounce Ballas. We put it in the way it was spelled, couldn't do it, kept saying balls, balls every time. So we actually had to create, and he did a few different spellings just to sound it out. We were literally sitting here going, Ballas, bow. How would we spell phonetically? Like, all right, yeah, let's do this. And he finally got it to work. So it's still not perfect. It's doing it. I mean, those video clips you showed me were amazing and scary.
You get a chance, check out Sora, Sora. It's pretty phenomenal. And there's a bunch of people saying hello. So hi, Steph. Hi, Candy. Hi, Sky. Hello, Ian. Everybody
everyone.
that's tuning in. Hello, everybody. We are paying attention. We're seeing you guys over there too. It's good to have you all commenting. So we've covered the Center for Inquiry. We have the skepticalinquirer.org webpage that people can go to. And then I think we just need to get people that are on my side over to your YouTube page as well. Where can people find you on YouTube?
So on YouTube, I have my page, which is Kenny Biddle. You just look up my name. That I use that for my streaming, my Friday night streaming. So I do a live stream every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time called the Skeptical Help Bar. And sometimes I have a guest. Sometimes it's just me. Hey, there I am. And it's a laid back kind of, sometimes we have what's called open mic night. And it's just me. I take your questions. I give you answers if I can. If I can't, I look it up and I share my screen. We learn together. And I've done that a bunch of times where we learn something new together, and or we'll watch a video, as long as YouTube doesn't yell at me for it, or something like that. And then other times I'll have a guest on and we'll talk about psychology or medicine, or how alternative medicine, like the last one we did, her name is Kat Mack, and she came on and told the story about how she had asthma. She still does, among other things, but she went to a friend of hers suggested she go to an herbalist, and she went, and the herbalist gave her first a mixture to make tea. She couldn't drink the tea because it was disgusting. She said it was awful. She got 2 sips. That was it. Went back to him, said, I can't do this. He's like, all right, here's some capsules that ironically he only sold. So that's a red flag there, but gave her capsules and said, take these. And, she started taking them, and asthma cleared up, but she started gaining weight. She started having all these other issues, and it took quite some time until somebody finally said, hey, can we test these pills that you're taking? And they did, and they found out that there was an extra ingredient that was not on the label. And that was a steroid.
Ooh.
That now what she told me was she was taking the equivalent of about 108 prednisone every day, like 108 capsules every day. And she had to be weaned off like over months because it was so serious. It killed her adrenal glands. It gave her all these other health problems. So we talked about that, and we talked about the activism that she's doing now to make people aware of this. To help, she lives in Canada. She got regulations in place. She helped get them in place to regulate these herbalists and what they're selling. Because the box, she showed me the picture of the box. It looks like medicine you would buy on the shelf at any drugstore, which is scary. It's so scary. But that's one example of a guest that I've had that we really got into that. And I like it because I don't know all these topics. I'm not well versed in these topics. I don't know much. So when I have someone that has either lived through it, or is a professional in their field, I get to have that environment where we're pretty much sitting there, got a drink. It's like we're at a bar, and I'm just, hey, what do you do? Oh, really? Tell me about that. And that's the way it goes. And it's a fun show. And a lot of people that were in the chat that I see that I recognize, they're my locals. They come to the bar every week. So it's good to see them in there.
Get some bonus content for you guys.
There you go. There you go. And I also do, I have a Ghost in the Machine video series that I do for the Center for Inquiry YouTube channel. So that's also on there.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I saw that earlier too as well. And then I know you don't really concentrate on your X presence whatsoever. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but if people want to follow you on X, I know there's numbers after it. I just had it up a second ago. Let me find.
I don't even know what my name is on there. What? I'm looking it up now. Oh, it's at Kenny Biddle 42.
42. Yeah. So
that's the answer to everything.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, I do that, and I'm also on TikTok. If anyone's on there, you can follow me on TikTok. Kenny Biddle CSI. If you look that up, you'll find my channel. And like I said, I do a lot of recreations and show you how it's done. So not only do I show that a lot of these things are deliberately faked, but I teach you how to do it, at least my way of doing it. So there might be several. I've done videos where I've done it like 3-4 times, the same trick, but just different ways. Because like I've sat here and go, you know what? I think I can do it this way too. Oh, let me see. And then I'll yell out going, Eric, you busy? And he's like, no. I'm like, good. Come here. You're going to be a ghost. and we go out and make another video. So a lot of fun, fun.
It's great. My wife and I, we did a ghost tour up the road from us years ago before we got married. And it was kind of a date night. And they had those little flashlights and they had it on the shelf in this room. And they tell us the story about, how they get a lot of activity here. And when the lights come on and then they go off, I'm like, holy shit, it's happening. And when I saw your video this week, I was so disappointed because I was like, I got scammed. I want my money back.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. You're doing great work in order to inform people about, don't fall for the snake oil salesman. Don't fall for the narrative, which I think, when we spoke, you're like, you do realize I'm a skeptic, right? And I don't really fall in the wheelhouse of the rest of your shows. I think we do fall in the same wheelhouse because I founded my show in order to try to bring some common sense to the political headlines and what's going on in the world and talk people down from the sensationalism. And I think that you and I live in the same world of trying to be critical thinkers and apply a logical brain to everything. You're doing the work on the paranormal side. I'm doing the work on the geriatrics of politics side.
Well, you're right. Like that's my intention, is to not just solve the mysteries and tell you this is what happened. I want to teach you those skills. My articles, my videos are not just here's the story that I was told and here's the solution. I take you through every step. I tell you what I did. There's videos I've done where I started out and in the beginning of the video, I tell you, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to go with the flow and see what happens. And by the end of the video, we figure it out. But I love to teach that critical thinking. I love to teach you a method of how to think, not what to think. I mean, I'll tell you the solution at the end because that's my job. But I also want you to walk away with the skills to do it yourself. To look at everyday stories in the headlines or online and social media and look at it and go, is that true? I don't know. Let me look into this a little more. And you'll have the skills to look into it a little bit more. That's my goal.
Excellent. I love it. And I love the fact that you keep an open mind that if I can't prove it, then you just say there's not enough evidence at this point in time and continue to investigate. There's nothing wrong in life with saying we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. We could use a lot more of that because I think the majority of us don't know. But we got to trust a little bit of our intuition. And sometimes that comes in the form of critical thinking and also check what I said earlier, cognitive dissonance, right? What are you bringing in your biases towards things? What do you want to see?
Yeah.
So awesome. Michaels, this delivered. I think this is an awesome show for both the network and the live audience tonight.
Absolutely.
I had a good time. This is everything I hoped it to be and more. Thank you.
Yes. It's good. It's good. That makes me happy because I didn't know, I was like, because you reached out and you sent me the link to your channel and stuff. And I'm looking at it going, I don't know how this is going to go. This is either way, but you know what? I'm open to it. It doesn't really matter. There's very few people that I will say no to. And there's very strong reasons why, but for the most part, if anyone reaches out and says, hey, you want to come on the show? Yeah. Let's talk. Let's see what it's about. Let's get to know each other.
Exactly. So, the world's a better place when that all happens. So just thank you so much for being a part of the show. It's a pleasure. And, we'll get you back on. I enjoyed the conversation that much that if you want to come back on, it's an open invite. We'll talk whatever concept we want to, because if there's one thing that Michaels and I can do, it's talk a phone book. So
my wife would agree that I have that problem too.
Awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up here. It's been a blast bringing this one to you. We hope that we honored your time well. I know this was a little bit longer of an episode than what normally, but I didn't want to stop at any point in time. I wanted to let it go where it was going. And so thank you all for hanging in there for the entire episode. It gives you a lot for the weekend. If you're listening to this on the America Out Loud News Network, that gives you some programming for Saturday and Sunday. They keep you until I have a new show come Monday. Same thing, Chris Michaels. You can find him at Last Call Caravan, as well as Unleashed on the America Out Loud News Network, and his daily podcast, which is like little bite-sized 10 to 20-minute shows called Last Call Caravan with Chris Michaels. And you can find me at Real Greg Bolden, my Patreon page, patreon.com/America Emboldened. That's all, everybody. You've been watching and listening to America Emboldened with Greg Bolden and Chris Michaels, our special guest, Kenny Biddle, here on all socials and the America Out Loud News Network. Be bold, America.